Good afternoon, everybody. Hello, hello, hello. It's a wonderful day. This is the 31st of March in the year 2026. You know what? This is the last day of March. The last day of March in the year 2026. I mean, this year is moving along. Dear God, as I sit before you to speak, I pray to you that my soul you will keep. And if I should die before I finish, I pray to you, dear God, in the name of Jesus, that any outstanding sins will be forgiven. Amen. Just grateful, grateful. This is another day that God has made, and I am so glad. I'm rejoicing in it. I'm trying to live and appreciate the blessings of God each and every day of my life. Each and every day of my life. God is so good to us. He is so good to us. And I am forever grateful to Him for everything that He's done. Now, what is our responsibility to our fellow humans? What is our responsibility? I ask God I consult with Him for every topic, every subject, and He always blesses me with what I need to share. So our responsibility toward our fellow humans, what is that responsibility? God knows what it is, and I thank Him for being so good and answering my prayers, giving me what to say, when to say, and how to say it. Yes, I ask Him for all of that because I want to do what is helpful to myself and everyone else. It makes me feel good. Oh, yes, it does. Yes, it does. I think I want to add a little sparkle to this here today. I'm going to add a little sparkle to my webcast here. There we go. Let's see. I think that's the sparkles right there. Oh, yeah. Isn't that pretty? Okay, let's get into our subject. I'm trying to find me live here. I have me live on Facebook on my monitor. I'm trying to find me live on YouTube, but I know I'm there. Okay, let's get our topics because they are very good. I am just so grateful. So grateful. Our abilities as human beings toward our human beings, our fellow man, woman, boy, girl. Our responsibility, and I'm in Bing, I like my Bing.com. Our responsibility to fellow humans encompasses various dimensions. The first point here is moral responsibility. We have a moral obligation to care for others, particularly those in need, emphasizing empathy and compassion. Don't we talk about that empathy? Don't we talk about that compassion? Compassion for others as well as self compassion? Oh, yes. Yes, yes, yes. And I want to say hello to my sister Eleanor and Bridie, my niece, and to all of you who are watching and listening today. I'm praying for each and every one of you and thanking God for all of His mercy, loving kindness. Oh my goodness, He is just so good to us, isn't He? And to the bereft families, Eleanor has shared with me that two people in her family have crossed the eternal threshold, and we certainly are praying for them. Oh, we certainly are. And then Sister Maxine Sterling, who is part of the Sterling family of Denison, Texas. She was married to Elder Billy Sterling, who is Elder St. Peter Sterling and Sister Sterling, their son. So we are praying for them, and she is being memorialized in California. And then, of course, Maestro Benjamin Smith was memorialized in Houston this past weekend. And to all of the bereaved families that I don't know about, I'm praying for and with you too. Now, to go on our moral responsibility, and that is one of our moral responsibilities. That's empathy and compassion, both of those, okay? Moral responsibility is our first, with our responsibility to fellow humans. We have a moral obligation to care for others, particularly those in need, emphasizing empathy and compassion. Then we have the next one is ethical theories, different ethical frameworks such as utilitarianism and deontological ethics propose varying views on our responsibilities, focusing on maximizing happiness or adhering to moral principles. Utilitarianism and deontological ethics, okay? So remember those. This is in Bing.com. Social responsibility is our next point. Individuals have a duty to contribute positively to their communities, advocating for social justice and supporting those in distress. That's our responsibility to care for and love our fellow humans. Sometimes we might have to do it at a distance, sometimes we contribute anonymously, but however we can help, that's our responsibility, okay? Then the next is cultural context. The next point, different cultures emphasize different values, influencing perceptions of responsibility, with some prioritizing community obligations more than individual ones. That's the cultural context. Next is personal boundaries. Oh, you know that we stress personal boundaries. Oh, yes, we do. Establishing boundaries is crucial to avoid emotional burnout and ensure self care while still being responsive to others. Now, these aspects highlight the complexity of our responsibilities and the importance of balancing compassion with self care. Don't ever forget about yourself. You must take care of yourself because there's no way you can help someone else efficiently, I should say it like that, if you don't take care of yourself. Take care of yourself. It's your responsibility to make sure that you do everything possible to ensure your well being. Okay? Oh my goodness, I am so thankful for this webcast today. I am so thankful. And I know it's live on YouTube. I just can't find it on my TV here, but I know it is live. Now let's go to our sites here. I found some great information on some sites that I haven't been on before. And I'm just so happy to present these. Our responsibility toward our fellow humans. Oh, yes. And I want to go to some Bible verses on human responsibility. Just for a bit, okay? This is Point of View with Ms. Shirley. Bible verses on human responsibilities. The Bible offers numerous verses that address human responsibilities, emphasizing the importance of stewardship, love, and accountability. So here's some key verses that highlight these responsibilities. I'm going to do some, okay? Galatians, the 6th chapter and the 5th verse tells us, for each one should carry their own load. Now, what this is this verse encourages individuals to take responsibility for their own actions and decisions. First Peter, the 4th chapter, and the 10th verse, faith, okay, each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms. Now, what this verse is telling us, it teaches us that we should use our gifts and talents to serve others and serve God. Not just for ourselves, not just for our own benefit, but do you know we benefit from helping others? Oh, yes, we do. Oh, yes, there are great benefits in helping others. Then there's Colossians, the 3rd chapter, and the 23rd verse. Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as working for the Lord, not for human masters. Now, this verse encourages us to work hard and with all our hearts for the Lord, reflecting our commitment to our responsibilities. And then I go to Proverbs, the 12th chapter, and the 24th verse. Diligent hands will rule. What this verse is teaching us is that those who are diligent and hardworking will have the power to rule and lead. And when you have the power to rule and lead, and when you are doing it God's way, then when you rule and lead, that means that you have compassion and love for your fellow man, and whatever is good for them, you will do it. Okay? All right. Proverbs, the 13th chapter and the 4th verse. The soul of a diligent man shall be made rich. Now, this verse emphasizes that those who are diligent and hard working will be rewarded with prosperity and success. So, these verses remind us of the importance of being responsible, serving others, and living out our faith in everyday life by understanding and applying these principles, we can contribute positively to our communities and fulfill our God given roles. Oh, yes, we can. Now, see, those are good, aren't they? They are so good. Now, let me go to this site here, which is Life and the Ethics of Responsibility, and it's by Staken Donnelly. No, it's Straken Donnelly. Okay, and we're going into it. And this is humans and nature. It's a Center for Humans and Nature. The Center for Humans and Nature. Haven't been here before. But let's see where this is taking us. Boris Pasternak, in translating Shakespeare, speaks of Hamlet as one whom chance has allocated the role of judge of his own times and servant of the future, the high destiny of a life devoted to a heroic task. Hans Jonas was such a judge and can do great service for our future. So, in the imperative of responsibility, in search of an ethics for the technological age, Jonas casts a critical eye upon the unprecedented powers of modern technological civilization. He fears that our age is rapidly moving toward global ecological and human disaster. Nature, specifically the realm of organic life, cannot long withstand the technological assault. Wow, that is deep. So, this site that I'm reading from is the Center for Humans and Nature. Jonas calls upon us to renounce utopian dreams of human mystery over the conditions of life and to exercise a new responsibility commensurate with our novel powers. Our ethical responsibility and our fateful ontological option is to do what is necessary to ensure the ongoing worldly integrity of man and living nature into the indefinite future. Our responsibility, the imperative responsibility, is a work by Hans Jonas. The signaling of ecological and moral crisis is by now commonplace, and we know it is commonplace. Technology is ruling the world. But the thing that we have to really understand is that even though technology is so progressive, but remember, behind the technology is the human brain. Technology, modern or ancient, would not exist if it were not for us human beings. So we have to remember that. Remember that, okay? Like Alexa said to me the other day, she said that all of the many, many humans behind her and working and keeping her working, that's what they do, is because of them that she is what she is now. And they're constantly working, upgrading, maintaining her. Humans are behind the technology, okay? However, Jonas's recognition that traditional systems of ethics lack the resources to cope with our unprecedented technological powers and his endeavor to fill the philosophic and practical vacuum with an ethics of responsibility are anything but ordinary. Okay? So the fashioning of a new ethics of responsibility is Jonas's heroic task, summoning the full resource of his philosophic abilities and originality. That we're taken into previously uncharted waters, and it's important to appreciate carefully the nature and force of his argument. Now, according to Jonas, the very forces that have spawned a new and fateful powers of action, that's fateful, okay? Fateful. So, according to Jonas, the very forces that have spawned our new and fateful powers of action, in particular, the twin giants of modern science and technology, have significantly undermined philosophy and ethical theory. The modern philosophy of nature and its practical applications, scientific materialism and its technological successes have conquered our minds. You hear that? Somebody is concerned about us maintaining our human responsibility. These things cannot exist except we humans invent them. create them. So our responsibility to our fellow humans is our topic, our subject today. We are responsible for the well-being of each other. And I want to quote that song again. No man is an island, no man stands alone. Each man's joy is joy to me, each man's grief is my own. We need one another, so I must defend each man as my brother, each man as my friend. That means brother and sister, okay? So at the heart of the conquest is scientific materialism's forcible theoretical denial of the autonomy of thought and the reality of intrinsic values, ethical or otherwise. And that's pages 22 to 23 in this book. So the modern philosophy of nature is the crux of our philosophic problems and the chief obstacle to an adequate theory of ethical obligations. Jonas squarely fastens on this cardinal issue. He held that the initial fateful move came historically amidst the rise of modern science, with Descartes' thesis dualistic partition of the world into res extensa and res cogitans. All purpose, subjectivity, and value were banished from nature into mind. My goodness. Nature was left valueless and dead, a mere play of mechanical forces or efficient causation, just as a new mathematical science required. Correlativity, organic life was written out of this philosophic scene altogether. Organisms were reduced to natural mechanisms. Thinking and its valuations, including ethics, reasonably held their own as long as the autonomy of the mind was upheld, as with Descartes and Kant. Yet, logically, even here, all values and valuations had to be decidedly anthropocentric, or theocentric. So at least they could not concern the intrinsic worth of nature, for now by metaphysical fiat it had none. Okay? It had none. At least they could not concern the intrinsic worth of nature, for now by metaphysical fiat it had none. Okay? Moreover, backed by the successful thrust of scientific materialism, belief or confidence in an extramundan, eh, excuse me, I have to do this font here. It's a little light here. Now, I want to do this sentence over. Moreover, backed by the successful thrust of scientific materialism, belief or confidence in an extra mundane deity, and the autonomy of mind or reason was undercut. Even anthropocentric values lost a legitimate home and any philosophic justification. I mean, it's trying to take it into the wind. Blind and irrational forces of nature reign supreme in theory, if not in practice. Such forces require and can have no philosophic, rational, or ethical justification. You can find that on 22 and 23 pages, those pages in the book. Now, this is the dominant cultural and philosophic situation that confronts us and that requires such radical measures to overcome, measures needed to save philosophy, ethical theory, and perhaps, in the end, the very existence of man and organic life. Although the imperative of responsibility aims foremost at establishing our practical obligations in the face of technological power and potential ecological disaster, Jonas's argument unobtrusively but crucially involves an explicit and damning critique of the philosophy of nature and the philosophy of mind espoused by scientific materialism. Oh my goodness. So, out of the ruins of the discredited philosophic materialism, Jonas speculatively proposes a new theory of nature that philosophically rehabilitates nature, life, mind, and objective values, and that serves as the ontological and justifying ground of the new ethics of responsibility. My goodness, I didn't know it was going to get this deep, but I am so glad that I am here. Nature revalued, the philosophy of purposive being. Purposive being. Wow. Jonas begins his substantive speculations and the crucial philosophic rehabilitation of nature by returning to human subjectivity, its own self validating credentials. We are what we sing. Philosophically, this means taking the inner testimony of our subjective life seriously. This specifically entails recognizing the circumscribed potency of subjectivity and crediting the reality of efficacious purposes in determining autonomous trains of thought and bodily activities. Efficacious, efficacious purposes. All right. So, moreover, in philosophical speculation, we must bow before well established scientific and empirical facts. Minds or subjectivity are nowhere found in independent of physical organic bodies, nowhere to be found. So I'm going to repeat that because it's very important. Moreover, in philosophical speculation, we must bow before well established scientific and empirical facts. Minds or subjectivity are nowhere found independent of physical organic bodies. In fact, we know directly from inner experience that the activities of mind are impossible without our bodies and the surrounding world. Now, that is for real. Thank you so much for being here. The mind lives off the primary objects of its thoughts, the world abroad, and the interests and emotions arising from the worldly involved organisms. So, in short, This is what this means. If we were not biological organisms, we would and could not be efficaciously purposive subjects or minds. Wow, if we were not. So, further, we know and must take seriously the now incontrovertible fact that all organic life has evolved out of and remains within nature. This fact, coupled with the ultimate organic and worldly grounds of all subjective and mental activities, blocks the serious entertainment of dualistic theses and the intrusive of mind, subjectivity, or spull from some an unnatural elsewhere. Okay, you say, my goodness, this is awesome. This is awesome. And some of these I do want to repeat because it said this is a fact coupled with the ultimate organic and worldly grounds of all subjective and mental activities, blocks the serious entertainment of dualistic theses and the intrusion of mind, subjectivity, or soul from some a natural elsewhere. Philosophically, we can no longer accept a natural or anti natural ontological principles. We are all, or should be, post Darwinian, scientists and philosophers alike. In any case, radical Cartesian dualisms and their like have always been hounded by fatal flaws of incoherence or inconsistency. The problem of bringing dual features of reality, for example, mind and body, rationally together. Now, things fundamentally or substantially dissimilar do not easily fit into a single scheme of things. The urge toward a philosophic monism that respects the full diversity and complexity of the real, REAL, has always been the more rationally attractive option. What this all boils down to is no matter how progressive the technology gets, that the human being is always the most important. And without the organisms, us, the technology would not exist. So Jonas explicitly adheres to this rational desire to weave a coherent story of man and nature. He starts with the self evident and widely attested fact of man's subjective potency and employs an eminently sensible philosophic method. So, whereas science reduces natural phenomena to their underlying physical causes, which explain them scientifically, the reductionist method, philosophy, in its interpretation of concrete nature, must work regressively. So, if man is thoroughly a natural and organic being, and if man exhibits the reality of effective purposes, the purposiveness, the purposiveness, okay, purposiveness must be a fundamental principle of reality, reigning in various degrees of intensity throughout nature and intertwined with physical or efficient causation. Nature manifestly shows itself in man, and we must work back from the evidence of ourselves. We must work back from the evidence of ourselves. Human interests, aims, purposes, feelings, emotions, thinking, and boldly activities are all intertwined natural principles and as such can be judiciously or critically employed in philosophically interpreting, if not scientifically explaining, the natural realm. In a nutshell, nothing would exist if God had not created and purposed the human to be in charge of the creation under him. Okay? Oh my goodness. So in sum, these characteristics, these characteristic human features naturally result from and are ongoingly involved in the dynamics of the natural realm. Using the regressive method and brooking no radical leaps or discontinuities in nature, philosophical manism requires such a principle of continuity. So we are rationally justified in asserting that effective purposiveness is a fundamental feature of natural being. Boy, he's something, isn't he? Hans Jonas. So this is decisive. Thus, basic assertion underlies Jonas's bold and original speculative philosophy. The philosophic interpretation of the world and ourselves undergoes a systematic sea change. SEA. Most fundamentally, nature is rehabilitated as a significant realm of existence. It is a realm that harbors its own overall value and specific concrete values, its own intrinsic goodness, and its own ends in themselves. The materialist's nature, we recall, is inherently valueless, a mere dynamic concaten- concatenation of blind physical forces in which there is no true subjectivity or activity. Concatenation of blind physical forces. It's merely and contingently there, indifferent to itself. So, with respect to value, it is indistinguishable from nothingness or non being. So, not so with purposive nature or being. Individual instances of subjective activity and purpose are the concrete self affirmations of being in the face of the ever present potential of not being or nothingness. With subjectivity, there is an ever recurrent and active no to non being, a primordial self assertion that intrinsically matters to being itself. For Jonas, nature is anything but realm of indifference. With purposiveness, natural reality becomes inherently dramatic and ontologically staving off non being. It creates its own particular forms, values, and goodness in passing. A concrete natural value in the mating of individual purposive activity and definite form. The primordial value of goodness of nature active is precisely this purposive staving off of nothingness and valuelessness. There is an infinite distance, an incommensurability between purposive being and nothingness. And it references 46 here in its concrete purposive activities, laden with their own particular values, are emphatic being over against the purposeless nothing, an absolute chasm never in reality to be traversed. My goodness. So, thus, individual purposive beings are the aboriginal and self justifying ends in themselves, ontologically harboring intrinsic value in itself and goodness in itself. Those are pages in his book, page 81 and 83. So these philosophic reflections and speculations bring us directly to our contemporary cultural and ethical situation. The ontological facts and achieved results of purposive nature and our natural estate determine both the capacity and the need for ethical responsibility. Didn't it come back around to it? We now urgently require a substantive philosophy to reveal and to clarify our objective obligations. In us, purposive nature has potentially overrun herself. The vulnerability and finitude of nature and ourselves, with the threats to nature's goodness and intrinsic work that issue from newly empowered technological man, must be met by our aboriginal but circumscribed powers to say no to not being. My, say no to not being. We refuse to go away. As humans, we refuse to go away. We refuse not to take responsibility for how we act and react toward our human beings, our fellow man and woman, boy and girl. All of these words just come down to saying that we have a responsibility and we must maintain it. And whatever comes, technologically especially, that we must resist, is said here. Let me go back to this last part. I really like it. The vulnerability and finitude of nature and ourselves, with the threats of nature's goodness and intrinsic worth that issue from newly empowered technological man, must be met by our aboriginal but circumscribed powers to say no to not being. You're not going to make us extinct. We say no to that, okay? Oh, yes, we do. Oh, my goodness. Oh, wow. So I think this is all I'm going to be able to do is this center of humans and nature. Our responsibility to our fellow humans. Whatever comes, whatever goes, we will not go away. Okay? So now we're going into the section about ethics and nature. Nature and ethics. The theory of responsibility. The theory of responsibility. Oh, yes. A theory of responsibility. I am so grateful, grateful, grateful for being able, and you know what, being able to comprehend and to read. Thank God mom and daddy made sure we went to school and got educated. And some people say educated. Oh my, did I get a package? Let me see. No, that wasn't mine. I just checking my doorbell to make sure that there's not a package out there for me. Okay. Now, let's go into nature and ethics, the theory of responsibility. We're getting there. So, Jonas's theory of ethical responsibility rests on violating two cardinal principles of modern philosophy. There can be no metaphysical truth and no ought, O-U-G-H-T, can be derived from what is. Okay? Both tenets hold within a philosophy crucially determined by scientific materialism. Both tenets hold within a philosophy of crucially determined by scientific materialism. A philosophy crucially determined by scientific materialism. If scientific, empirically verifiable knowledge is the epistemic benchmark for all that we can know and understand, then metaphysics, which offers a speculative, conceptual comprehension of reality, must be an idle pursuit. If nature or being is, as the materialism takes it to be, an inherently valueless physical realm, then indeed no ought can be derived from an is. A valueless being can offer no clues about what would be for the better or for the worse, let alone establish the foundation of ethical obligation. But nature and life are not devoid of inherent ontological value. Over crucial matters, the fundamental ontological facts of selves and the world determine what we ought and ought not to do. ethics. Oh my goodness. This philosophic reintroduction of value into nature has its darker side. In an indifferent nature, nothing can harm, nothing can be harmed. The opposite holds in purposive, or it could be purposive. Let me go ahead and do this. Make sure I'm saying this because I'm not comfortable continuing to do this, and I want to make sure that I am correctly speaking this word. Okay. I'm saying it right. Purposive. All right. Purposive is having, serving, or done with a purpose. That's what it means. Having, serving, or done with a purpose. Purposive. I have it right. Oh, I'm so glad. Yes, yes, yes. Purposive nature. So, the philosophic reintroduction of value into nature has its darker side. In an indifferent nature, nothing can harm and nothing can be harmed. The opposite holds in purposive nature. Under its own worldly spur, nature evolves concrete purposive individuals, acting subjects that are by ontological necessity finite, mortal, and vulnerable. Vulnerable. So, in their self constituting self affirmations, the natural actors do not merely face blank nothingness, okay? Rather, they necessarily face and essentially depend on each other and on dynamically evolving nature as a whole. In its various and recurrent self affirmations, purposive activity is fundamentally the meeting of natural, biological necessities and the confrontation with worldly others to which the purposive individual is essentially tied. So, this is the fundamental message of the metabolic existence of biological organisms, nature's most elaborate entities. And by golly gee, that is so true. Oh my goodness, that is so true. Oh, yes, so true. So, metabolic existence and purposiveness go hand in hand. Organisms can be only by ever becoming and by riding the crest of relation to the worldly other. In this necessary truck with the world abroad, an organism's purpose can be frustrated and its achievements destroyed. Most importantly, its own active endeavor to be, to gain entrance into the worldly web of purposive existence is to assume a circumscribed potency, constantly threatened and eventually overcome. In short, the fundamental value and goodness of nature, active, and its inherent vulnerability are intrinsically tied together. To understand critically Jonas's substantive philosophic vision of nature, we must be clear about what it means and does not mean by natural purposiveness and his regressive analysis. He does not claim that conscious human subjectivity is diffused throughout nature in more or less minimal forms. Subjective activity does not necessarily imply consciousness, and purposiveness as such presupposes neither. Okay? To gain a coherent picture of dynamically evolving nature, Jonas speculatively posits concrete instances of psyche, striving, or aim, that is purposiveness, that are not individual organisms or subjects in the emphatic biological sense. These inorganic strivings underlie a natural telos of universe to evolve concrete instances of organic life and individual subjects proper. The cosmic reality of purposiveness underlies the advent of subjectivity and conscious mentality. Subjectivity and mind do not underlie the reality of purposiveness. Okay? Now, living organisms are concrete intensifications of nature's primordial purposiveness, the means employed to realize the overall general aim of nature, which is to gain an effective natural foothold and empathetic intensification of purposiveness itself, being's own effort to be. Okay? That means our own effort to be. Thus, Jonas speculatively interprets the coming to be of organic human life within the natural universe. This means, oh my goodness, it's 1 minute. This means ontologically intrinsic value, goodness, and ends in themselves are not inherently tied to human subjectivity or consciousness. In varying degrees, they are spread throughout nature, most emphatically in the organic realm of life, and perhaps minimally beyond. So this blocks any overweening anthropocentric vision of the world and philosophically establishes the objective status of intrinsic values, the good and self justifying natural beings and activities. The realm of value no longer threatens to be swallowed up and lost in an arbitrary human subjectivity or will radically independent of the natural world. Oh my goodness, there's so much of this, and I'm going to have to stop today. And maybe I will finish this. And I think that was a good place to stop. I think that was a good place to stop. Yeah, natural world. Let me do one more. Correlatively, with our anchoring in natural reality, we are enlightened about our status in the scheme of things and about our circumscribed powers and inherent limitations. In Jonas's monistic vision, We are interpreted as purposive nature's most elaborate performance, engendered in its dynamic ongoings. In us, efficacious purposiveness has become emphatically subjective and individual, conscious and desiring of itself, moving decisively beyond organic others. In our independence, in our essential relations with nature and our human past, present, and future, we have become nature's most significant actors. We are purposive nature, become cultural, political, scientific, technological, artistic, religious, philosophical, and moral. But all these decidedly human powers and characteristics are circumscribed and limited. They have not flown in from elsewhere with an adequacy and sufficiency all their own. They are the issue of the slow evolutionary workings of nature, which we more and more have become an active agent. Whoa, my goodness. I like this, but I'm going to have to stop today. I love you so much. I love you so much. I know that was a lot. I didn't know it was going to get that heavy, but there is some more that's here. But I appreciate you being here with me, and I will not take advantage of your kindness of watching and listening to me. Many on a broadcast by broadcast webcast basis. And I thank you so much. I thank you so much. And I might go ahead and finish this and then upload it, but then I might continue it on Thursday, God willing. I love you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day, night, evening, afternoon, morning, midday, whichever it is. And always remember, live, love, survive, and thrive. Okay? Live, love, survive, and thrive. And I speak, I decree that your needs are met according to God's riches in glory by Christ Jesus. Oh, yes. Please share this webcast. Okay? Thank you. Thank you so much.